Hi guys, welcome back. Today I thought I would talk about a very common issue for, most if not all of us artists, which is the motivation and inspiration to create art, or rather the lack of it, which is often referred to as creative or artist block. And I figured I would share a few of the things I do to push through to the other side of, the bad times, I guess we could call them. So to anyone who's new here, a quick introduction. Hello, I'm Minna, aka Hummingfluff, and I make a webcomic called Stand Still, Stay Silent, which is a post-apocalyptic adventure comic in a Nordic setting. So snow and forests, that's the setting, and Nordic mythology mixed in with the otherwise normal post-apocalyptic stuff. And the drawing I'm working on in the background of this video was just some post practice that I was doing in my sketchbook. This one is one of the main characters, Lolly, and that's what I decided to have in the background. So I've been drawing said comic for 6 years now, 4 pages a week, over 1,000 pages in total, and as you might guess, there are times when I have zero will or motivation to draw another page. I even have times when I straight up hate the comic as a whole and kinda even regret getting into art because it just feels horrible drawing, and I don't want to do it anymore. And most of the times these periods only last a day or two, like it's a bad day, like we all have, or at worst it's a week or two or a few weeks. Usually this is if I'm stressed out about something else on the side, which then leaches into my, or not leaches, I guess, seeps into my artistic creative uses. And then things usually get back to normal pretty fast. No worries there, we can all get through, a few bad days here and there. But every now and then I will have times that last several months where I just have no spark in me to really draw, and it feels like eating paper every day. That's how it feels like drawing the comic. I think one of those periods lasted a whole year, I feel like. I might have even had 2 times when it was almost a year, when I just felt like I was trapped doing the comic almost. But I can't just not draw, at this point obviously it's my job to draw, and I always know that no matter how bad I feel, the bad times will end eventually, and I just have to push through to the other side, to the point where I will again enjoy the comic and drawing and be creative and have all of these amazing ideas again. And I know that if I stop drawing, that when the time comes when I'm inspired again, I'm going to hate myself for wasting those weeks or months not drawing, because that's what I used to do when I was younger, before I learned to self-motivate, maybe. I don't even know what you would call it, just self-discipline, I suppose, maybe. I would just not draw when I wasn't motivated, and then I would be mad at myself a few months later that I hadn't drawn anything at all and just wasting time and not getting better, and it felt like I would never be able to become a professional artist because I was always just losing periods of time that I could have been productive. And now I have been able to work through that, and I hope some of these tips that or these strategies, I guess, that I've been using to self-motivate through these years could help some of you with your struggles, if you're also struggling with these things every now and then, art-wise. So tip number 1 is to stockpile ideas and even sketches, especially sketches almost, when you are in a high inspiration period. Because obviously when you are losing motivation and inspiration, your first obstacle will always be coming up with an idea and sitting down and sketching it. And if you already have some sketches ready, it's way easier to sit down and just force yourself to methodologically executing your drawing idea. There's no creativity or inspiration needed anymore because you have your blueprint, which is the sketch, and you just have to fill in the lines and the colors. And if you have trouble coming up with colors when you're in a low inspiration mood, make sure that your idea sketches that you stockpile also include some sort of color guides or inspiration. I have folders with color ideas that I collect, that I will look through when I'm in a time when I can't really think of any good colors on my own to go with my sketches. But even if that's too much to you to pick out good colors, just paint in some base colors in your sketches so that you know what to do when you use them in the future. And personally, I also have a big image file where every time I come up with a illustration idea that I don't have the time to draw right now, which is most of the time, I just make a super quick thumbnail sketch in the file. And then when I feel like I don't have any ideas, I just open that file that's called future idea drawings or something. I just open it and I look at all of the thumbnails with a little sentence under them describing what my idea was, and just realize that there's so many good ideas there. Even though I don't feel anything for them, I would be able to just sit down, pick one of them and just do it if I had to. And sometimes I do that, and that is tip number 1, stockpile your ideas. And the next tip, which I think is tip 1.5 because it's in the same vein, but it's more for the fellow comic makers out there. Make sure you have your script for your comic worked out for many pages in advance at all times, because the last thing you want to happen is to run into a long creative dry spell and then have to try to figure out the next part of your story while you're in the dry spell. Because it's hard enough to keep up the drive to draw the comic pages, but if you have to also come up with the story and good dialogue and interesting page compositions, it can become non-overcomingly difficult. You can't get over the difficulty, is what I'm trying to say. And personally, all I need to be able to push through a comic page when I'm out of motivation is I need to know what's gonna happen on the page, and I want to know the panel composition, at least like the big main panels that are important. Because if I know those, I can just kind of sit down and draw a sketch, because I will know the facial expressions and the poses in advance, and it's like a guideline again, like the sketches from before. Well, I can just execute them because I have drawn the line arts so many times that it's almost on autopilot. Same with the colors. I just need to know what the blueprint is, and do the same. Don't try to wing it, because winging a comic story only works when you are in a very creative mood, and that's a very good way to kill your comic. Somewhere in the middle, just thinking that because the story kind of came to you very easily when you were in a creative mood, that it's gonna keep coming to you easy. Don't leave it like, oh, you know kind of where it's going and you're gonna figure it out later, because later you might not have the spring might be dry for a few months, and you don't want to stop making your comic 4 months obviously. So that's tip number 1.5. Script out your ideas for your comic in advance. Also, tip number 2. Don't worry about staying in or reverting back to your comfort zone, because a lot of time as artists we idealize the pursuit of trying new things and not getting stuck in your artistic comfort zone, or drawing the same subjects over and over again. But that pursuit can also be really paralyzing every now and then, like trying to prove yourself to the world that you're going forward as an artist and trying to be the best artist you can. But if you're having a hard time getting motivated to even draw in the first place, it just adds an extra boulder to climb over if you're also trying to be great at the same time and being worried about what other people think about you as an artist. So if you're low on motivation, just draw what comes easiest to you. What's like the thing that makes you want to draw, that made you want to draw back when you started making art? Like, is it just basic fan art, or just some pretty girl with flowers in her hair, or a cute animal just looking cute, or a cool dragon just being cool without any sort of meaning or story behind it? Just whatever it is that you like doing. Or even like redrawing some of your own art is fine. Don't worry about whether or not you're learning anything from it, or if it's quote unquote basic or anything like that. The point is to just keep your drawing motor going through your dry spell, and sometimes you just have to give the motor some cake. I don't know, that's not a good fuel for a motor. Whatever the cake equivalent of motor fuel is, something that is very easy to eat for a motor. That's the kind of art you might need to do for a while. And that's tip number 2. A simple tip, but it can be very helpful. So tip number 3 is to kind of think of drawing as just a job, like a boring job, or to think of it as you being an unpaid intern somewhere for a while. As in, approach drawing, at least for the time being, as a task that's no different than being a surgeon who goes into work even when he has no motivation or inspiration, and he still performs his extremely complicated, mentally creative and, improvising surgeries for hours on end every single day, and does it even if he doesn't really feel like it that day or week or year. And don't think about he gets paid, that's why he does it. That's not the point with this example or the way of thinking. The point is to kinda strip the notion of doing art as being some sort of magical, super special thing that can't be done without inspiration, unlike every other craft or profession in the world, because it's not really different from anything else that people learn to do as a skill. Think of it as a skill and a craft rather than art, which is makes it different. Just think of yourself for a time as a plumber or a car mechanic or a wedding planner who has to solve a problem that they are presented with, except your problem just happens to be based around organizing a bunch of shapes and colors into a interesting whole and then rendering it. Just basically turn art into a boring, clinical and calculated task that just has to get done. And it can be done. That's how many concept artists or production artists or professional artists do a lot of their art. They learn what looks good and they combine different elements in ways that they know work, and it might feel bland maybe if you're used to only working with inspiration, but learn to do art as a skill-based task rather than a inspiration-based thing, and think of it as a job or unpaid internship and you are the boss. And honestly, this might be the way that helps me personally the most. Thinking of it this way helps me through my toughest art periods. So the final tip for this video is a little bit on the lighter side. It's simply to browse art that is different from the kind of art that you do for a little while. And by that I don't mean to necessarily go look at bizarre postmodern art. If you're into anime cutesy art, in that case maybe it can be enough to just look at some slightly darker or semi-realistic anime art that's, same genre but just a little bit different. Or look at cutesy stuff that's not anime illustrations, more like Western cute illustrations. Because sometimes as artists, especially nowadays with social media, we kind of get into our circles of art, like artists that we follow that are doing similar things that we do, and we just get the same things over and over, and we compare ourselves to people who do similar things, and we only get a feedback loop of the same things, and sometimes that can be really stifling and you don't even notice that you're being stifled. It's like you're sitting in a train cabin where people are just breathing the same air over and over again, and it becomes like smelly and heavy and moist and gross, and you don't even notice how difficult it is to breathe until you open the windows and everyone gets a fresh breath of air. Similarly, it can help to just look at different kind of art. And I notice this very often with myself, especially if I get stuck in looking at a lot of comic art, especially if it narrows down to webcomic art. It becomes very limiting mental-wise, because there's so many like similar styles people do in this kind of scene, and even expanding my horizon to looking at I don't know, I don't really look at superhero comic art, but other kinds of comic arts immediately puts my brain working a little bit more, and looking at people who don't do comics at all. They just do amazing illustrations that you don't really see in the comic field as much, because people focus so much on their art that can be done a little bit faster, because that's what you need for comics. And seeing those fantastical illustrations just makes me go, whoa, that's what art can be. And then I'm inspired to do more comic stuff that's, not what I saw, but it just made me inspired. And yeah, that can really help. Get out of your little or even big art bubble wherever you are on the internet looking at art, and look at something slightly different or completely different, and it might help a little bit. So I think that's it for this video. I have more tips that could help, like smaller things, but I think these were the main tactics that I use. And sometimes one of them is enough, sometimes I need to do all of them to get out of a funk, and these don't even necessarily get you out of a funk, they just help you move forward making art, and eventually, almost as if on its own, the bad air will lift and you will feel good about drawing again. And yeah, I hope some of you could find some help from this, and I will see you guys next week for some other art video. And if you want to follow me and my art on social media or read my comic, links are in the bio. And my cat just got up, so I had to give her some food. And yeah, thank you for watching this video, and see you next week. Bye bye.